Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Our Lives, your weekly podcast where we talk about the things that will affect each and every one of our lives. This week, we're joined by Mark Griffin, otherwise known as the Dementia Guy, and we're going to be talking about an issue, quite a serious issue that affects almost everyone. Mark, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us. How did you get into dementia? How did you become the Dementia Guy?
So, it started 22 years ago, straight out of school, not having a clue what I wanted to do. My mum said, "Oh, you're nice with your grandma." I thought, well, I'm pretty much nice with anyone. So thanks, mum. She's like, no, but you're all spending time with her on holidays, whatever. Why don't you give elderly care a try? Childcare. So I went into elderly care and, from the starting out as a young carer, not having a clue what was what. Care 22 years ago isn't care today. 22 years on, how we move and handling was different, how we assisted people with personal care, medication. I was a senior carer on nights giving medication out at 17.
Wow.
Mental. And obviously along the way seeing poor practice, extremely bad practice, and ultimately working my way up through the career ladder from senior, deputy manager, area manager, etc. I kind of thought, no, I saw the failings very early on with dementia.
Yeah.
Just not enough in the country at all to educate carers, seeing the staff give their roles up very soon into the career because they didn't have a clue how to handle a situation.
Yep.
And that's where I thought, oh, something needs to change.
Yep. Okay, so what do you do now? So you have care homes, but also you are the go-to guy for dementia training.
I am Midlands, but yeah, I am the go-to person for dementia. I think in our local area as well, I've assisted a lot of care homes, mostly for free, just with dementia. And again, in my own care homes, seeing the failings. And when I say failings, nothing drastic, whether it's just approach, whether it's understanding, when it's recognising people's needs, whether them 5 basic human needs we all have. If I'm hungry and thirsty and I'm tired, without dementia, I'm a grump. My wife is more of a grump than me. She's got angry. But then you're in pain, you're uncomfortable on top of that. Just to name a few, you're going to get emotions displayed that you are not ready for. And I use emotions displayed because have I got challenging behaviour because I'm sick of my wife leaving her clothes on the bedroom floor? Have I got challenging behaviour because the dishes are piled up in the sink? Or am I expressing my emotions because I'm just fed up with the situation? It's very much the same for the people we're caring for. They've not got challenging behaviours. They're reacting to a situation that they found themselves in, and you haven't recognised that.
It's a really interesting point. I think you just probably hit on all my touch points for why I'm in a grump is because dishes have been left on the side and so on and so forth. I don't think I can think of many people, particularly of my age and above, that haven't been affected in some way by dementia. Now, that's not to say that they have dementia, but they've definitely been affected by whether it's a family member or a friend. How many people have got dementia? I know there's statistics on this, but I also know that you have a slightly different view.
Yeah. So in the UK, I think Alzheimer's UK put the statistics out most year, and it'll be around 800,000 people. There's 10 million people worldwide getting diagnosed with dementia throughout each year. But 800,000 people with dementia is absolute bollocks. It's bullshit. There is millions of people out there. You could probably add another 30 to 40% on top of that easily who haven't got a diagnosis, which again, that's where a lot of problems are stemming from. Getting a diagnosis in this country is horrendous. Sometimes rightly so. It can be a long process for the right reasons. We don't want to be giving people a diagnosis of dementia when it's just delirium, underlying infection, other problems, just general age or a deteriorating condition that's affecting something else, which can give you confusion. Again, I understand that, but there is not enough to get the person the right diagnosis.
Okay, so when I think of dementia, and I've had a family member who's had dementia, what are the symptoms? So I'm going to say, I think of forgetfulness, but then I'm probably the most forgetful person I know, and I don't think I have dementia. I'm quite grumpy quite a lot of the time. We know that is associated with dementia. What are people looking out for?
So you're not looking for, oh, I've lost my keys, oh, I've lost my phone, oh, I've lost my wallet. That's every day in life. You've got a working memory in that where you remember you can retain 4 to 5 things as a general day. I could say to you, hi, Vicky, we'll go in the park at 12 o'clock. before they go to the park, actually, let's meet at Costa at 11:30. You know, how's your life been? How's the kids? Oh, bring some pictures of the kids' school, you know, the school photos. And then after the park, we'll do X, Y, and Z. I've already asked to meet me at the park at 12. Then I retained, let's go Costa first. Then I've asked you to bring some photos. Then we'll do some things after. You're probably going to forget your car keys on the way out because you're trying to think of everything I've just told you.
I would 100% forget the car keys.
It is, you forget a significant event. You know, and I'm not talking about, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I have regular appointments. Oh, I can't believe I forgot that one, but I remembered the other 6 or 7. It is, you forgot your husband's name. You forgot your wife's name. You forgot it was your anniversary. It's things you would never forget that are so important to you and your core values. It's things you can tie your emotions and your feelings to. They're what you start to look for, the core memories that someone would never forget. And you think, wow, Mum, you'd never forget that. Why are you putting the toast in the kettle? And there's little traits that come along the way, whether it's through the gait shuffle and obviously there's illnesses through dementia, whether it's Parkinson's, Lewy body, Alzheimer's. They all display different traits. And ultimately, everybody displays different traits individually because everybody's different.
I think that's a really interesting point because my 9 had dementia and she was forgetful. But as growing up, she'd call us by every pet's name, every sibling's name, every auntie's name. But that was regular. That always happened, and I must admit I'm quite guilty of doing that myself now. I forget who I'm asking for, what I'm doing. But she loved bingo. She was obsessed with bingo, and she was the bingo queen. And she had been more forgetful than usual. And there were some signs, but nothing that would say something's wrong. And we were at the bingo, and she completely forgot that she was playing a game. Now, if you'd have known her and how militant she was about the bingo, and both my auntie and I looked at each other and thought, oh shit, this is something. And that was the almost the light bulb moment for us to say something really isn't right now, because that was, and it's like you said, significant. Bingo was the ultimate in her life. What other behaviours are there that would change? Not just around memory loss. You mentioned the gait shuffle. What does that look like? How does that? That's more
associated with Parkinson's early on, or your Lewy body. But essentially, a lot of people are sugarcoating around dementia. It's essentially brain failure. The brain is dying. There's no other way to put it. And there's different parts of the brain that's dying. You know, you might get a diagnosis of one dementia, but there's 2. You know, there's another fact with dementia that always comes in 2s. So you might. I think through the front temporal lobe, it's social awareness that goes for a lot of people, and that's affected from the right front temporal lobe. And that is where you would not leave the house without being fully clothed, feel your face on, your makeup, you're not putting the wheelie bin out for some of the mums out there. And then all of a sudden they just don't give a monkey. They're not bothered what they look like. They don't care. They don't care what they say. They don't care the environment they're in. They don't hold the tongue anymore. They won't hold no punches. They might develop a bit of racial slur, a bit of language might start coming out of there. You're not used to it, thinking,
right.
Oh. And that's just the social awareness and associated with the right front temporal lobe of the brain. They can't think, oh, that's inappropriate. They think, no, shit's given. Let's get it out there.
Let's get it out there. So you've mentioned a few different types of dementia. How do we know what type of dementia? Is it important to know what type? And is there different treatments for different types? And when do you find out what type somebody has?
This is where my problem lies with the system. And it is all about the right diagnosis and getting a diagnosis early on. Now, families are one of the last people to recognise the dementia because they're spending every day with them. It's just, oh, she's winding me up again. Oh, she's bloody forgot that again. They don't realise it's started a long time ago. And then for those early on in the disease, you know, the grandparents who are hard as nails, they've come through tough times. Well, bloody get on with it. Don't worry about your granddad. I know what I can manage him. You don't worry about him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're taking granddad to the doctors. And the doctor starts having conversations with him about how he's been, how he's feeling. The family are getting involved. Going, no, granddad, you're getting a bit confused. You're not taking me to the doctors again. You said I'm confused. You're bloody stupid. It's all up with me. I'm not trusting you. And then all of a sudden, getting them back to the doctors is no go because they've lost trust in you.
Yeah.
So it's easier to. So long story short, as someone gets further into the disease and the decline, it's easier to diagnose it because everything's so apparent. The doctor can even see it. They're asking conversations, date, time, week, month, year, who's the king, you know, what country do you live in? My only problem with them tests is if you're really smart, which my wife is, she's so clever, it winds me up. She would pass all them just because she looked at the news this morning, watched a bit of telly, and that's her done. I'm naturally a bit thick, and I'd fail them just because I don't have a clue what day of the week it is.
When you said who's the king, I suddenly thought we've got a king, and then I've realised that we have indeed got a king. So I'm probably this. I'd probably fail the tests too,
Yeah.
and also my memory is absolutely shocking. So how do we go about getting a diagnosis? We know we go to the GP as the first port of call, I assume. What happens then? What
GP's
comes
first port of
after
call,
that?
and then so he's going to ask several questions with you, do a quick screening test about your psychological evaluation, speak to the family as well, see where they're at, and then they'll refer you to the memory team. Getting on that memory team is a few months. Now, in that time when you see the memory team, there should be a lot going on. We should be doing, if we think it's Alzheimer's or even Parkinson's or Lewy body, there's proteins we can take from spinal fluid. We should be doing them tests to diagnose them ones. Then you've got your stereotypical vascular dementia and others along the way, whether it's someone's had drinking problems and are now developing corticos dementia. That all comes through tests. We should be doing PET scans that show the full brain images where you can set the grey matter, the white matter, and everything around this, and different parts of the brain that could still be working. They'll come up on different coloured scans, red, yellow, blue areas, etc. It's getting them full scans completed. However, you try to get someone under a scanning machine who isn't aware of the environment, what day it is, what time it is, they're not getting the full checks. So you can't fully accurately diagnose which dementia it could be because you can't get people to get the test done, or they're refusing the test, or the families are struggling, or they're already in a care home and it's more of a guesstimate from what the carers, the seniors, the management are saying when the memory team's coming out to them as well. And then it's just a guesstimate.
Okay. So assuming that we've now got a diagnosis, I've got a couple of questions around this as well. One, is dementia treatable or is it manageable? I think they're two very different things. It's not going to go away, is it? It's not.
No.
We can't cure it. Okay.
No, we've never cured it. And Alzheimer's, there's many medications where they pronounce it right, donepezil or donepezil, depends where you are in the country, that can slow the process of Alzheimer's disease down. With vascular dementia, your brain's having mini strokes all the time. That'll just come from maybe some people on blood thinners or hypertension medication, heart medication processes. Yep. But ultimately, you're just treating it. You're trying to manage it. Yeah, sorry, you're not treating it, you're managing it. Maybe a bit of both, I suppose. But yeah, you're slowly managing the condition. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to deteriorate. It's never going to get any better. Today's memory is not going to be any better than tomorrow's.
So I think there's another thing here is around, obviously diagnosis isn't quick. That takes time. A lot of people, 6 months is a long time, particularly I think if you're looking after your parents, you're also working, you've got children and so on and so forth. Is how long, and I'm sure this is sort of a question with many, many answers, how long is it safe for somebody to live in their own home with dementia? And what can we do to make that time safe and appropriate and comfortable for them as well while they are living in their own home?
Really good question. And again, that is how long is a piece of string. For me, and this is where a lot of families feel the guilt and the burden. Never look at a care home. I'll never put my mum or my dad, my brother, my sister, my loved one, my wife in a care home. They're the worst things in the world. On the news, you will only see the bad stories. There are so many good care homes out there now. There's so many. And equally, there's still some bad ones. There's some amazing schools out there for children, some bad ones. It is just the culture sometimes, or the staff, the people that's there. But ultimately, for me, when you start looking for a care home is when home is no longer home, when home is no longer safe, when they do not recognise their own living room, their own environment. They no longer feel safe, cared and loved for in the environment they're now in. They started to leave the front door open. They started to wander out in certain hours of the night or the day. They now need a bit of care through the night, or they started to have falls later on and nobody's there. Sundowning becomes a bit more apparent. I use the word sundowning loosely.
Okay, could you explain what sundowning is? Because I think this is one of the key things, particularly in social care, we hear a lot about is sundowning. So, and I know that this is a subject that you've got a lot to say on. So, talk us through sundowning, what it is, or what it isn't, and any thoughts around that?
Yeah. So in my experience in the 20s in care, sundown is often used later in the day when the sun literally goes down, or people say there's a full moon tonight, everybody's on one, hate the saying again. And, you know, someone who's been quite settled most of the day, enjoyed some interactions, be a bit more lucid, has now become disorientated, confused, agitated, frustrated, try to even get out and leave. No fucks given, trying to break the doors down if they have to. They're getting out no matter what. On occasion, it could just be physical and verbal aggression towards staff, other people around them, even family members, loved ones. Again, trying to leave the front door or the back door, trying to just wander the streets. However, with sundowning, you know, people think, oh, it's when it goes dark. No, it's not. You think of through winter. Do we get any more sundowning through winter when it goes dark at 4 or 5 o'clock than we did in the summer when it was lighter? You know, or sundown, can it happen at 11 o'clock in the morning for someone? I think sundown can happen at a variety of different parts through the day.
Yeah.
And it's person specific. You know, I've got many different residents who get to 8 or 9 o'clock at night and they start with it showing these emotions of agitation, a bit anxious, a bit frustrated. And it generally is because they're tired. They're just ready for bed. They're long overtired. It's been a long day. And yes, they've had a little siesta in the afternoon, but they've joined in activities, armchair exercises, quizzes, bingo, arts, crafts. We might have even had a pantomime in. And they're just shattered and ready for bed. Equally, they might just be hungry, and we've not met that need again. And sometimes they're just looking for the husband or the wife. And how do you meet that one?
I think this is something that I really did want to talk to you about and ask is, this is one of the more heartbreaking aspects of dementia, is when people's memories, the short-term memory goes. And we've had this where someone was asking for their mum, and their mum had passed 60 plus years before. How do you deal with that with an individual? Do you say, and I know this is what we used to do, and I don't know whether it was the right thing or not, is, oh, she's gone to the shop, she'll be back later. And that seemed to settle them back down. They were like, oh, okay, my mum's at the shop. This is a sort of a 90-year-old woman asking for a mum. Or do you, in effect, what would be my view, and I don't know whether this is right or wrong, re-traumatize them and have to explain day in, day out, that person's died. What would your view on that be?
So can we pause this for 1 second? There's a buzzer in the background and it's driving me mental.
Of course.
So I think it depends on the person specific. If it's someone who's early on who can be orientated back to time and date, and there's clues you could give somebody like, oh, how do you think? I've not saw mum for a while. How do you feel, you know, see this morning when you got up? And sometimes there's little prompts and they go, oh, you're right, she's not here, she did pass. And they're fine with that. And equally, there's people who are so far advanced or even not understanding that they've even gone missing. They don't even recognise that they're not here anymore. So why upset them? Why bring them back to reality, to bring that trauma all over again, to go through the grief, the heartache, the stress that puts on somebody to lose someone as such a loved one so close to you, meant the world to you? Why tell them they're not here no more? It's so much kind of with distraction techniques, and this gets built over weeks and months. I call it your tool bag. Everybody needs a tool bag for individuals they're caring for. I might have 26 tool bags for one care home for the 26 residents there, and 72 for another care home because that's what they need as well. It depends where you're at and the place you're visiting and who you're with. But ultimately, in that tool bag, you've got to know the answers that didn't work in the past and what works today. And that just might be, oh, so, you know, mum's gone to the shop, she'll be back later on. Or she's gone to bingo with friends, she's out all day, she'll be back later on. She's made you tea, it's in, you know, it's all ready for you, so I'll get you tea out later on. But she is safe, she's all right. She'll be back later on. Oh, thank you so much. I do get worried about her, you know. And there's little mistakes.
Do you find that then people then will ask that question again? Does that tell you anything if people will ask the same question and then they'll be given an answer and then ask again?
Yeah.
Is that different? Do people experience dementia differently?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two parts to that. One, anxiety. I'll touch on anxiety in a minute. So the first one is, if people are asking again, maybe you wasn't as reassuring as you should have been. So be more convincing with your lie. The other one is anxiety, which gets very confused with in the dementia itself. When you get someone who's so repetitive, like, I'm going to the doctors today at 12 o'clock, aren't I? Yeah, Grandad, 12 o'clock today. She's saying, I'm going to the doctors today at 12 o'clock. Yeah, Grandad. Well, he knows he's going to the doctors. He knows it's 12 o'clock. He knows he's got appointments and he's not forgot. He's repetitive because he's anxious and worried about this appointment. He's anxious and stressed he's going to forget. He's anxious and stressed because in case he looks daft and stupid. So he needs you to reassure him. So my advice to people who have appointments who are like this, who will repeat it, is maybe tell them an hour before. Or 2 hours where they need that time to get washed, shaved, do it prim proper. Tell them 2 and 3 days before where they're getting anxious and stressed about appointments. Slow that rate down. Give it to them on the day. It's not going to change their life. If they're not leaving, they're not going anywhere. Equally, some people do need a bit of time and a bit of notice if they're not repetitive and anxious. But if they are, why would you trigger that?
It's taking that really person-centered approach. So I think that what I'm taking away from this is it's very much about the individual, and there's no two people who are going to be the same, and it will need to be managed the same. So I think it's almost a little bit of trial and error.
It really is. And you're going to get it wrong, and it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to not know the answers to every question you're getting asked. But just remember when you got it wrong and write the wrong one down. Yeah.
A learning process. And it is very traumatic for not only the person living with dementia, but their family, their friends, the people around them. And they almost go through a grieving process quite regularly, and that they could grieve more than once when somebody has dementia. I think something else that's cropped up is baby dolls. Now, I know you and I have spoken about this before, and giving people those objects of comfort. What's that all about? Because I know that sometimes people with dementia are given a doll to look after or a teddy. So why is that? What does that do for somebody?
So it gives someone a purpose, it gives someone a meaning, especially someone who's been a parent all their life, or a grandparent, an auntie and uncle, and they absolutely love children. And children should be introduced into care homes. Most care homes often, we have Kids in Bloom coming to one of our care homes, and they're absolutely amazing at interacting with the residents. But with the doll therapy, the baby therapy, whether it's an animal or a dog, a teddy, it's just that feeling the need to care for something and love it, nurture it, look after it. And it gives them a real sense of purpose and releases some endorphins, and it just makes them a happier person. And then the only problem with that can come across in the care setting, and many carers may laugh at this, is when they just nip the toilet and leave their little baby on the chair, and they come back and somebody else has that doll. Oh my word. They've been kidnapped. It's torture. How dare you? You're getting the emotions you are not prepared for when someone steals their child or their dog or their cat, and then obviously it's trying to get them off the other person to give it them back. Good luck. Good luck. It's a long day, and sometimes you
that in a group setting.
Wait till you've gone to bed and then sneak it back ready for the morning after, and make sure you get it good wiped down for infection control.
So we've talked a little bit sort of about how friends and family can manage, and I think there's lots of information out there, and again, it is very much trial and error. How, and this is going to be slightly controversial, but I know you don't mind controversial, Mark. How well trained, because this relates back to your previous point about I would never put my family member in a care home. You do hear the horror stories.
You do.
How well trained are care home staff in dementia?
On a scale of 1 to 10, -3, it is shocking. It is dreadful. So Alzheimer's UK just released a statement this week, but luckily they take it to government and they've got someone on board with it. 29% of carers receive some form of face-to-face training. It's not face-to-face training is not mandatory yet. Dementia is a leading cause of deaths in the UK for the last 2 years, and it's one of the most complex conditions. And I could just go and complete an e-learning course in 20 minutes.
That shocks me, and it shocks me to my core. People will look, and the advice that support services will give you is look at their CQC rating. Mm-hmm. And to not have dementia as a mandatory face-to-face training session is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. It is when these guidelines, CQC do kind of work sometimes with guidelines, and these guidelines, health and safety, things like that, Public Health England, but these guidelines does recommend face-to-face training. It's on there, and it does, but obviously CQC can't force a provider what training they're giving their staff. I'm really impressed that the Oliver McGowan disabilities have just come in now training for staff. The autism awareness thing, it's something like that, and that's just coming to our care homes now, which is amazing and great. Now, for me, for over 65, especially elderly care homes, that's nice, but we don't see a lot of that. But that's mandatory for every care home. So why isn't dementia, and that's the leading cause of death, and that's one of the most complex conditions we're going for in the LD environment? It's so bizarre.
It is bizarre. It seems to me like it's such an obvious thing, and I work in the sector, you work in the sector. There are things that you and I would look out for, and we would know what questions. What advice would you give to anybody who either now or in the future is looking for a care home or care provider for a family member or relative with dementia? What questions do you need to be asking that care home? Because I think the training is, do your staff receive face-to-face training would be a really good one to start.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions you would ask, or what would you look for in a care home
Yeah,
for someone with
activities.
dementia?
And what you want to see activities. Like, is it nice for these luxurious care homes to have a beautiful ensuite room and a cinema room? Yeah, it's nice having a cinema room. It doesn't get used. It's now a training room for the staff. It's a practicality of activities. What are you going to do to stimulate my loved ones? And in dementia, you've got apathy, you've got depression, you've got anxiety, you've got stress. And it's trying to hit all them on the head. It might be your mum used to love going out. You were so outgoing, such an extrovert. And now she's interested, not want to leave. Well, that's still in her. She still will join in. She still wants to get out there. It just takes time for her to get to know people and trust. And when you're walking around these settings, are you seeing the staff giving them residents a little hug? Are you seeing their interaction of banter? Banter's massive in the care industry. You've got to have a laugh. And every personality is different. Everyone's got different characteristics. You want to see general banter. You want to see the love. You want to know that there's no budget on diet, on fluids. There's no budget on food. That's one thing we all look forward to, is a nice meal. Shouldn't be a budget on food. Shouldn't be a budget so much on activities and entertainment and what's going on. You want to see that the core values of the care home are built on love, and that care is the foundation of the care home, and the business comes second. Yes, business is important, and they've got to remain open. Otherwise, what good is it at all being there if it's not sustainable? But equally, there's got to be so much with care, love, activities, entertainment, cleanliness of the building. So much you've got to look at.
The environment. So I know, and I've seen some of these care homes, and they look like 4-star hotels. They are very, very fancy. Is that something to look out for? Because I don't generally feel that everybody's homes, mine certainly doesn't look like a 5-star hotel.
No, yeah.
It looks great.
That's a profitability thing. That is, look how luxurious and glamorous we are. You've made thousands in your lifetime. You've got loads of savings in your bank. We're mainly going for private clients. Great. But then who they bring through the door, they don't really have the core values. So there'll be flowery wallpaper, patterned carpets. It'll be so luxurious. Well, that's not practical for spillages of tea and incontinence, is it? Let's be honest. It's just not. The smells that are going to end up coming, and odours in some of these settings. But again, they can afford to replace the carpets and the furniture all day long because the money that's coming in. But the care isn't always there. And the building's so nice and luxurious. They're mainly caring for those who may be getting a bit lonely at home or early in the dementia stage. But as that progresses, they're then not practical.
Okay. What would you do to make it? Obviously, earlier on in the conversation, you said that the right time to seek residential care for somebody is when home is no longer home. What can you then do to make somebody's room? Are you allowed to bring your own furniture, your knickknacks? How do you make somebody feel comfortable in that environment?
So I always recommend, one, what side of bed does somebody get out of at home? Do you get out on the right side? Do you get out on the left? That matters for falls during the night. So if they get out on the right side of the home, that's the other side they're getting out of. And now they're getting out on the left, they're now disorientated before you started. It's making that room, whatever room they spent most time in at home. If that's the living room, that's the bedroom. Take most of them pictures and furniture settings from the practical. Now, a care home, most bedrooms are probably 4 meters by 3 or 5 by 4. They're not massive bedrooms. Some of the luxurious ones are, but practicality, they're all not. How much time does someone spend in the bedroom? Well, if I went to visit my mum and she's always in a bedroom, what would sitting in 4 walls do to you? It'd make you rapidly deteriorate. You're not engaging, you're not socialising. There was a study a while back from someone who was in a care home to someone living at home. And someone at home started further off up here, and someone in the care home was down here. After 6 months later of doing the test, they now took a massive incline because of social environment. They're engaging. There was more compass mentis. There was so much more interaction going on, and the person at home deteriorated a bit quicker. So they'd increased going into a care home. They got a better quality of life. The mobility improved. There's now more environments. The staff 24/7. They're now made to, they're encouraged to be more independent. Even if they're not actively busy doing something, just the staff being busy and other people, you're constantly people watching, so your brain is active. If you're sat at home just looking at the 4 walls, waiting for your daughter to come for 20 minutes every day, or one of the carers to pop in for 10 minutes and give you tablets, what benefit is that?
That's a really interesting point, and I think people do feel such a lot of guilt around a family member going into residential care. I do think that's one of the primary factors for or waiting, perhaps once it's too late, once people have started having falls, rather than being proactive. And what we're all about on this podcast is making people aware that dementia will affect all of us at some point. So it's thinking about things and being more proactive and planning and having those conversations with your family members now, while we're all still young, we haven't got diagnosis, about what their cares and wants and wishes are, but also the practicalities of one day it may not be safe for you to be home alone. And it's making those plans in advance. It's really interesting what you said about people being at home, because people always think that's the better option. But actually, you're right in so much as being in a busy environment, having people around, having lots of people to talk to throughout the day. And that's perhaps something that I hadn't necessarily considered
You're
myself.
denying people friendships and relationships. It's exactly what you're doing. You know, oh, we don't want to put in a coach. She always did the tone. She always said they never want to go in there. And we also said that we might not get on a plane. We also said we might not want to do such a thing. But we put ourselves outside our comfort zone sometimes. But obviously, when someone's got power of attorney for health and well-being and they're thinking, oh, but I always promised them I'd never do this. Well, then maybe take them to a day centre, see how they get on. Maybe speak to a local care home to say, could I come in for a couple of hours for a brew, a cup of tea, just sit and have a chat, see how they get on? Would that be something you consider? If the care homes say no, shows you where the values are. They shouldn't really be saying no for a cup of tea, should they? It's just, you're a community. So you should be having everybody in locally who want to come and see what you offer and engage in community activities and get people ready for the next stage in life, potentially.
Are there any red flags when you go to visit a care home? And I'm going to ask you one thing very specifically, is creating false environments. Now, I know you've got quite strong thoughts on this, is painting a scene on a wall or putting stickers on a wall that represent...
Don't. Right. Yeah, it's real or it is not. Stop putting fake shit on your walls. They put in false post boxes, false telephone boxes. Well, that's lovely. You've just had an arts and crafts activity. They've just written to a loved one. He could have even passed away, but we're rolling with it. They're then posting a letter into a fucking brick wall. How is that helpful? If you didn't feel confused, you do now. You know, you post, it's just absolutely baffles me. They'll have little flowers jotted everywhere. They're trying to pick them up. There'll be patterns on the floor. They're bending down because they lose that 3D image. They've now got binocular vision or scuba vision. Depends how far they are into the dementia and what conditions they've got. And the other eyesight, everything's changing for them, even the dexterity, the hand. And it's just more confusing. Why would you do that?
That's really interesting, and I do agree. I think you're right, and it's either real or it's not. And again, sort of almost going right back to the beginning of the conversation, is memory goes, but there's a lot of other things with dementia that people don't think about. So you talked about the binocular vision and the dexterity. Could you explain a little bit more about those as symptoms of dementia?
Yeah. So natural part of getting older is your eyesight might deteriorate a bit, your hearing may deteriorate a bit. Obviously, as your brain is now failing on you and it's in different sections of your brain are closing down, that's going to affect your eyesight. Now, early to middle, this is not for people who actually have eye conditions. This is just a general deterioration of the condition of dementia. And a common theme will be, if you've got binocular vision, you're quite late on, you then need to look where you are going. So you may put your head down to look at your feet to make sure your feet are safe to walk. And you'll see residents lean over with the Zimmer. They start to put the head down. The staff will go, stand up, Jean, straighten your back. And she'll straighten up because now she sees where she's going. And then she walks again and goes, oh, shit, I don't know where my feet are. So she'll look down and do the exact same thing. And it's a constant conversation of, can you straighten your back? Just stand up tall, do this. And then she leans over him, but she needs to see where she's going. The vision is deteriorating so rapidly that then all they're now left with is this binocular vision that is literally, if you did that with your hands, that is all you can see. There's nothing to the sides, there's nothing up, there's nothing below. It's directly there. It's directly what's in front of you. And that can happen later on the disease. And then obviously in the meantime, getting to that point is where you end up with what we call scuba vision, where if you had scuba goggles on, which I do this in some of my training with the staff so they can see the difference. And then That's, again, you've got a lot more vision, but you can't quite see above. You may not be able to see below or directly to the sides, but you've still got what's in front of you. And that's where staff's approach is everything.
I think that's really interesting. And I think being able to give staff and perhaps family members the ability to see the eyes through somebody who has dementia is probably a really useful exercise to do, to kind of have that sort of empathy, or that understanding of what they're experiencing, because it isn't just about memory loss. It isn't. It's about a whole other bunch of things that will add inevitably to the confusion. I think the environment as well. I went to something around painting the door handles a different colour because it's white on white, and we all know that they do that because it's cheaper. So all these mobility aids that we get, and I was at the Dementia Summit a while back, and they were talking about handrails, grab rails, and they were like, they're white on white surfaces, but that's really bad for dementia. And we do it because it's cheaper. So are there little things that you can do to try and make life easier for people?
Yeah, so much. There's so much. And even with diet, nutrition, plates, change the colour of the plate. If you're eating white mash on a white plate and you've got white chicken and you've noticed they've ate everything else and left the mash and the chicken, that tells you the contrast needs to change. Just get an orange plate, a yellow plate, something's not going to match. It's the same with, obviously, your handrails. You want most things plain. Try and keep it plain, but just change the colour. So make sure there's no contrast in colour. If something's, like you say, if the walls are white and the handrails are white, well, then paint the handrails green. You know, as I always try to say to care homes, red, we associate red with danger. You know, so then put that on your electricity cupboard, put it on your locked doors, anything behind the key cord. You try and make that red because we recognise that as danger. Oh, I shouldn't go in there. You naturally do that in life. And then we have kind of bathroom doors, maybe toilets specifically, go through toilets, maybe like a yellow door. Then they know that every yellow door is going to be a toilet. Every time they've opened that yellow door, it's a toilet. Same with the blue, if it's a bathroom or the shower room, maybe paint them blue. Or have a colour that's for you. Doesn't matter what it is, it's just for you and for that person that you're not going to change up, that they can recognise something with. Because you don't forget an emotion or a feeling. So you may forget what happened last night, or you might forget you went to someone's 80th last night. You won't forget you had a good time. So you wake up in a good mood, but you don't have a clue why. You know?
Right. That makes perfect sense. Right, Mark, we're actually running out of time. This has been really, really informative. And I hope that you're going to come back and do another episode. We'd like to invite people to ask questions. Anything you'd like to know about dementia that perhaps don't feel comfortable asking, please get in touch and we'll come back and do another episode. And we will be putting all Mark's details in the show notes, so you can reach out to him, whether that's to sort of ask questions or to get training or to sort of ask some information and advice. Any parting thoughts, Mark?
No, mine's more for families and loved ones. If you've got someone in a care home and you feel it could be better, or even you work in a care home, you might be a manager and a director and area manager, and you think we could be doing more, speak to me. I'll help you for free. I don't always want paying. I'm fine, maybe cover me fuel, but if I can help someone to be better and help everybody else, that's my aim.
That's a really kind offer, Mark. Thank you so much.
If I can offer training to someone, I do a couple of training sessions for free. You know, everyone's so money orientated. Everyone's got to get something back out of something. We need to stop that. If you've got something to offer it. You know, at some point I might need recompense, or you might be struggling at an adequate care home. They can't afford the training. Look after me next time. Doesn't matter, but let's get you right now. That's kind of the message to the world. Let's all be nice. If you can be nice, be nice.
Be nice. Be nice for the sake of being nice. That's a really lovely message, Mark. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Lovely to see you, Vicky. Thank you very much.